Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for a review of the brand new Arctic Monkeys album, Tranquility Base Hotel Casino. This is the sixth full-length album from Sheffield rockers, the Arctic Monkeys, who originally broke out in the mid-2000s off of the incredibly smart and spunky album, Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I Am Not. The band's next album was noticeably more mature, but still a decent record. But as the Arctic Monkeys have continued along their creative trajectory, the band's music has only become more and more drab, transitioning away from the dance punk roots that they rode in on and more into like this warmed over Britpop alt-rock sound that just doesn't really have much oomph to it. A change I could totally see myself being fine with if this energy was being swapped out for better songwriting or something. But in the case of Suck It and See and the band's last album, that most certainly is not the case. The band's previous album, AM, is easily one of the most boring, lifeless, and uninteresting rock records of this decade. It's pretty much been a 5-year studio album break since the release of that record, and God did I need it, because I still talk to my therapist to this day about the lingering fear of around the corner at any moment an Arctic Monkeys album could pop out and bore me to death.
It's gonna be okay, Anthony. Don't get upset.
Oh, God.
It's gonna be okay, little baby boy.
So now the band is back with a brand new record and a brand new sound to it. A sound that a lot of fans were hitting me up saying, hey, you might like this one. Sounds nothing like their previous stuff. Or, hey, this is the worst thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Get ready. I wouldn't say either of those points are really valid or invalid. Personally, I fall somewhere in the middle. I mean, certainly the band's sound on this record is different. It's much more showy and glamorous and piano-based, with lots of themes of ego and fame and excess explored in the lyrics. And the Monkees play out this style pretty thoroughly across the entirety of this record. I mean, they really beat these themes and sounds into the audience right from the get-go with the song Star Treatment, which is a really ritzy, dreamy piece of piano pop with Alex Turner singing about doing 2 shows a day, 4 days a week, just wanting to be one of the Strokes. The track kind of sounds like a lounge nightmare, or like a bad Adam Green song without much in the way of a tune or a sense of humor or irony, even though the music on this record is clearly coming from an ironic place. Right from the start with this record, my impression is that I don't hate the angle, I don't hate the sound, I don't hate the style, I don't dislike what the band is going for. I just feel like I've heard it done before much better. Whether that be unironically by the artists who pioneered a lot of these lounge sounds, or by other songwriters later who would use this same kind of instrumentation to deliver a bit of satire or commentary. You could even say Father John Misty's Pure Comedy does a better job of saying something interesting over really luxurious instrumentation. Things do seem to smooth out a bit more on the next track, 1 Point Perspective. The instrumentation does a much better job of hitting that nostalgic G spot. And from a satirical standpoint, Alex Turner's vocals have a much better balance of legitimate passion and enjoyable camp. The tune on this track shines much brighter too. It doesn't just get bogged down in Alex's, I don't know, dramatic performances. The song American Sports, instrumentally, conceptually, is a fantastic transition. Sounds like a really dramatic piece of piano-backed William Shatner-esque spoken word, with like a dash of Timber Timbre influence. Yes, the Canadian band Timber Timbre, I actually do think that's a legitimate comparison at this point on this record, because I feel like this record and much of that band's discography has a similarly surreal and noir take on a lot of these vintage lounge and vocal pop styles, which is especially the case here as Alex's lyrics get a bit more narrative and there are some more psychedelic effects and delays popping up in the mix. I would say the one major hitch on the song is just the sudden ending. The title track is a really odd bird in the track listing here. It has these oddly intimate vocals, super close, almost claustrophobic. There's some intricate bass and guitar work, some really crisp drums, a nice harpsichord-ish type of arpeggio kind of playing in the background. The track instrumentally feels almost progressive, especially as this kind of jammy, growling synth lead pops up in the last leg. However, the pacing and the structure of the track is just really odd, unnecessarily complicated, and the hook is just unforgivably clunky. Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino. The track has a vibe, but even at 3 minutes, it doesn't feel like much of a song, which might have something to do with every passage of it feeling like it's in a constant state of introduction, like it never really truly resolves into anything. It feels less like a track on an album of really any sort, and more like the theme song to a historical period drama with a mystery angle on the BBC. And if that were the case, I mean, it would be a hell of a theme song, but not much of an album cut. The song Golden Trunks features some fantastic vocal harmonies, which really steal the show, some of the best on the entire album. They're tight, they're angelic, they're trippy, they're a little Beatles-esque, but it's yet another moment on the album where the songwriting and the execution just leaves a lot to be desired. The structure of the track is not really that muscular when certain parts begin and end feels a little blurry. The loud and buzzing guitar leads mesh with the vocals in a really messy way, kind of drowning out a lot of the backing instrumentation, and just overall the song feels blobby. The song 4 out of 5 is not only a sturdier song, but again, a funnier moment on the album. I'll remind you that continually throughout the track list, Alex Turner's lyrics are always referencing fame and popularity and basically the downs of the limelight. With the title 4 out of 5, I think you could probably guess that this song is very much about reception and perception. There's definitely a really glammy, luxurious Elton John vibe to it, especially as the band's vocal harmonies pile higher and higher and higher. I especially love the funky, dark guitar passages that kind of transition the track from one section to the next. Now, at the midpoint of this record, I'm kind of hoping for Arctic Monkeys to just find more ways to fill this style out and just completely explore it so this album is a bit more enjoyable, a bit more consistent, and feels less one-dimensional. But as much as I may enjoy a lot of the tracks on the back end of this thing instrumentally, the song The World's First Ever Monster Truck Front Flip has this total psychedelic Beach Boys-esque sunshine pop sound to it. The song Science Fiction is a painfully dramatic spot on this album that sounds like a moment of sad clarity in the middle of an exploitation film with like a horror angle, maybe something where somebody is hunting down sexy ghosts in the 1970s. And She Looks Fun might be one of the weirder and most quirky spots. I love the weird in unison chanting, "She sounds like fun," vocals that are repeated throughout the song. The track also features these heavy, thunderous, massive piano and guitar leads that just crush down on the mix every time they hit. It's oddly grooved too and features some really weird, sudden instrumental transitions that kind of lighten up the vibe a little bit. With all of these weird changes and just the brazen oddity of the track, it reminds me of something that even could have been on the new Jack White album, Boarding House Reach. Seems like there are a lot of 2000s rock artists out there who are just completely going off the fucking creative deep end, and I mean, even if every result from it isn't amazing, I'm glad it's happening. But as I was saying before, even though I enjoy a lot of these tracks instrumentally, I feel like Alex Turner often takes away from these songs more than he actually adds. His singing isn't always great. I mean, clearly he's aware of his vocal limitations and is mostly kind of playing into this style as an act. He's clearly trying to overcompensate with just absurd theatrics on every single one of the songs here, and either they just aren't enough to make his vocal performance passable, or he's just leaning on it so hard it just gets old. Not to mention that these same theatrics kind of take away from Alex's focus on a sensible melody on a lot of these tracks too. The lyrics also add to this because it feels like Alex doesn't have much in the term of rhythm or meter to his singing a lot of the time. He's just trying to pack 10 pounds of words into a 5-pound word bag. Sometimes it just feels like the music on this record, the only purpose it truly serves is to just be a platform for Alex Turner to be striking Elvis poses on top of it, while doing air guitar windmills with hands full of like Liberace-sized glitzy rings. Hey, Hotel Casino. Overall, I wouldn't say this record is a rough ride. I wouldn't say I hated it. It was certainly more entertaining and more interesting than the band's past few records. I love that they're trying something different, and I guess I love the target they were aiming at. But is it a flawed album? Yes. Is every track great? Absolutely no. I'm pretty indifferent on the whole thing at the end of the day, honestly. Now, after this record, I'm really not sure what to expect. I mean, I don't think that this record is going to be the Arctic Monkey sound and style from here on out. This was clearly a deviation, and a big one at that. I guess I just hope the band continues to experiment, and wherever they land next, it sounds less thrown together. I'm feeling a decent 2-strong 5 on this thing. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe. Hit the bell as well. And over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Anthony Fantano, Arctic Monkeys forever.